He also claimed Canada may join the deal later, but it would no longer be called NAFTA. But what does it mean for a binational city like San Diego? Miro Copic with San Diego State is joining me now to talk all about it. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
All right, so aside from the name change, because I believe he was calling it the United States-Mexico Trade Agreement,
right.
What does this mean to American consumers and specifically here in San Diego?
Well, to American consumers, it could mean a lot. But for the good news, and the markets are up today, for auto manufacturers, parts suppliers, it means a stability of the supply chain between Mexico and Canada, between cars coming back and forth. Big win there. For consumers, a little more cloudy. It could mean higher car prices in the future. Why? Because a couple of reasons. Number one, they're asking to use local steel and aluminum, which is much more expensive than imported steel from China or South Korea. Also, 40% of the value of a car has to be produced in a plant where workers earn $16 an hour or more. Now, that's good news for workers. It really helps workers in Mexico. It'll raise the standard of living a lot of workers that work in auto plants in Mexico. It'll really preserve jobs in the American South, where a lot of auto plants are located that are non-union and the wages are a little bit lower. At risk are the people in Wisconsin, Michigan, and Ohio that are unionized. The plants have been around for a long time, and they make a lot more than $16 an hour.
Well, you're a branding expert, so
right.
Let me ask you this. Again, not really talking about the name change, but NAFTA itself, because the president today during his announcement said, we're going to change NAFTA. It has a negative connotation.
You know,
Does
NAFTA has had its detractors, but generally it's been hugely positive for the United States, Mexico, and Canada. Mexico and Canada are number 2 and number 3 trading partners in the world. Between these three countries, we do over $1 trillion in trade, which is multiples higher than it was when NAFTA was signed in the early 90s. So generally, it's been very beneficial for people in all three countries.
And there's not a lot of clarity of what it could actually mean. We know that it would be 16 years long with at 6-year mark that they'll revisit it and maybe renegotiate some things and then extend beyond 16 years. But there are a lot of unknowns right now. So did you understand the announcement today? Because it seemed preliminary.
It was very preliminary. I think what they did is they created a framework by which they can renew the agreement, review it to make sure that it's relevant for the times. The things that weren't announced that were part of today's agreement were areas in the digital economy and e-commerce and some additional areas in agriculture, which improve the framework between Mexico and the United States.
Was it also a way of trying to get Canada back to the negotiation table? Because Justin Trudeau, the prime minister there, not exactly getting along with President Trump at this time.
Well, the issue is actually, the real issue is between Mexico and the United States, because this was a deal breaker in the negotiation. So Canada basically stepped out of the negotiations for the last few months until the U.S. and Mexico got this part of the agreement right. Now Canada jumps back in potentially, and one of the things that's not part of the agreement and that's still kind of unclear is that the tariffs that the president slapped on Mexico, Canada, and the European Union on steel and aluminum of 25%, which, if that doesn't get resolved as part of this negotiation, would really increase the price of cars for consumers.
All right. Well, Miro Copic, thank you so much for diving into this for us. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
San Diego State.